From Oscar Steakhouse, inside the Plaza Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, you're on the corner of Main Street. Welcome to the only podcast produced by and recorded in a Las Vegas hotel casino. From gaming to dining to entertainment to sports to Vegas history, this is the place to be for the inside scoop, because this is the place to be downtown. Now, here's Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel.
And we're live, and we're back, and I just came right from the pickleball court. Gary says he was spying on me from the towers, saw me hit some winners.
Well, I see you have a couple whiffs.
He says I whiffed. I've never whiffed in my whole life. It's impossible.
And then I watched him, slowly grab his back like he tweaked something.
Must have been someone else. I don't whiff. I only hit winners.
I only saw one person in a Cookie Monster T-shirt while you were out there. So.
That was me. So we're here doing our third and final best of episode.
Yep.
Really enjoyed these. Hope you all have enjoyed episode 1, episode 2. Today's is all about entertainment. Anything from nightlife to social media, just the industry in general here in Vegas. So if you haven't listened to number 1 and number 2, go back and listen to them. And as always, we've chosen, what is it today? 1, 2, 3, 6 of clips. Not necessarily our most popular or our favorites, just the ones that either were voted for by fans or that we enjoyed talking to, or we enjoy every episode, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's hard to choose, but
well, speaking of entertainment, okay, this is I have to ask you this question, and this is the first time that I've had this conversation with you, Jonathan. 3 days ago, as of this recording, the Review Journal posted an article about Life is Beautiful returning to downtown, and it being at the Plaza, or rumored to be at the Plaza.
What are you doing, Gary?
I have to bring it up.
You're right that
we're
talking about entertainment, but we're definitely not talking about that on today's podcast. But stay tuned and let's see what happens.
Can I ask you a question, though?
I may not answer it.
Can the Plaza grounds hold 30,000 people?
You've been reading too many news articles. And back to the best of episode.
Okay,
Stay tuned. The podcast is always the best place to find out information. So if there's
Right.
anything, you'll hear it here.
And speaking of insiders, let's go to a clip all the way back at episode 10 with
Yeah,
Scott
this
Roben,
is,
Vital Vegas.
Scott Roben, and you got to give Scott credit. Firstly, he's the only guest who's been on our podcast 4 times.
4 times, yeah.
And I think this is the first one. This clip is from the first one, but give him credit. Vital Vegas is a institution, I guess, at this point in town, and he likes all the scoop in town, and he's really an important part of what happens, and people genuinely read his stuff, genuinely are interested in his stuff, and I think he moves the needle. And when he says things are good or bad, it's meaningful. So we have him up first.
And in my world, it's odd because you want to move on and talk about other things, but I've actually taken heat that it's like, why are you posting pictures of the Bellagio Conservatory in the middle of a pandemic? So it's almost like you want to move on and you want to talk about the normal stuff, but everything seems trivial to a lot of people. Yeah. I don't care. I'm just going to do what I do. I'm still going to talk. I'm still going to share pictures of Wheel of Fortune. It's just me and the machine. I don't need to mask with the machine. So I'm not overly concerned about it.
How do you choose what to tweet about or write about? And do you have insiders at different casinos giving you tips?
Yeah, whatever stirs up the most. I am sparking conversation. I'm sharing things that I think will be of interest. If you're talking about like how do I decide, like say a rumor, if I share it as opposed to not sharing a rumor, it really is just the only real measurement is, do I think people will find this interesting, and will it provide value? That's my ultimate goal. It's like this show. It's like every blog. It's that priority is, will somebody like it? Will they share it? And will they get value out of it?
Do you see yourself as like a news outlet?
Well, there's news. I don't see myself as a journalist. I guess there are, citizen journalists. There are stories that I have and have broken. But I can't say that I went and did all the journalistic stuff you're supposed to do, like
get sources,
verifying
fact
crap.
check.
Yeah, no, I don't got time for all that. I think I'm going to be doing more of that because now that I'm doing it full time,
you have a vested interest in it.
Yeah, and it's more, I just have time to do it. Like a lot of times I won't, if I get a tip from somebody, I don't have an an afternoon to sort it out like a traditional journalist would. And so I preface it with this, just a rumor. You take it, leave it. I'm not predicting the future. I'm not saying it's going to pan out. It's interesting. And as my sources have gotten better, the reliability of the information has gotten much, much better. I still occasionally get it wrong because they get it wrong. They misheard something. They didn't understand it.
Hey, by the way, things change.
And things change. That's a big one. That, I take, because an example was the reopening of the casinos in that timeline, right? Very early on, I got a schedule that was bleak. It was not good. It was like things opening in 2021. So I shared it. I'm like, this is the worst case scenario, tentative timeline. And people are still coming back going, I thought you said Aria was going to open June 1st. And I'm like, things change. Yeah, every day.
Someone showed them how to bookmark that in their browser, so they just keep coming back to see if you update the post. They don't know that's not how Twitter works.
Yeah.
So.
And they think I delete stuff that's wrong. I'm like, why would I do that? Oh, there's no right or wrong. It was a rumor. I found it interesting, and a lot of times it's right.
You said your sources have gotten better. What's interesting about Scott here is a couple of months ago, I had people that I know that I'm friends with being like, do you know this Vital Vegas guy? And they're major casino guys and on the Strip and other properties, and they're all following him.
People know who you are,
taking interest in him. And do they reach out to you and say like, "Hey, I can share information with you"?
I was just thinking that. Or do you reach out to people and be like, "Hey, I'm wondering like if this is a thing"?
Yeah, there are go-to people at all the companies. There are occasionally people surprisingly high up in these companies who do reach out. They tend to do it through representatives because with public companies, you can't be like feeding information that could affect the stock market. Mm-hmm. And I was just on Fox Business News, as I'm happy to talk about a lot. And the woman, the host of the show said, when you did this post about occupancy on the Strip, the market moved. So that's absolutely horrifying to me. But those folks know that they can't do that,
right,
because they don't know if I own stock. They don't want to be seen as manipulating the market or influencing analysts, because that's a weird group of people that started following me, financial analysts. But for the most part, it's every level. It is people in housekeeping. It's valets. It's CEOs. It is at every level. It's presidents, vice presidents. Occasionally will send me things of interest. Sometimes they're trying to promote something. I tend to not share that unless it's just inherently interesting. But I like this stuff where there were 3 people in a room. Those 3 people knew that casino was being sold, and one of them will contact me. I think it should be horrifying for them, because there's only 3 people in that room. And if somebody's going to get caught, all 3 people are looking at each other going, was that you?
Jonathan, do you give tips to Scott?
Ooh.
I probably have reached. I think that's how. So I knew of you obviously a long time before, back to when the Las Vegas club was being sold, and you had some inside scoop, and it wasn't from me, that's for sure. So I know where that was coming from. But you knew.
Yeah, wait, what was the inside scoop?
He knew it was being sold.
How many people were in that room?
He broke the news that it was being sold before
there
anyone
weren't
else
a lot
knew
of people in the room.
There weren't many people that knew it was being sold, so he knew it was being sold. But that's okay.
I hate when I hear about people getting in trouble, because there are times when I'm like, somebody's really going out on a limb. I can't be responsible for the trouble they get into. But I do tell them, like, are you sure this is okay to share? Because casino sales are a big freaking deal. Like, there's millions of dollars involved.
That was 5 years ago, and a lot's changed since then when the Las Vegas club was sold. But to answer your question, I'd probably reach out to Scott with a couple of things. I don't know anything earth-shattering, but yeah, absolutely. Especially if you want him to tell people things that you want to be known. But I guess that does raise the question, when you say you're going to be focusing on your blog, are you going to try and monetize it? Because doesn't that change your ability to do certain things if you're monetizing it?
Yes, it will. The financial element will not be tied to any Las Vegas casino.
I'll advertise. I'm advertising.
Oh, nice. I don't know if there'll be any advertising. But yeah, it'll be. It's all kind of in the NDA phase now. But I'll be doing it full time, and there will be money involved.
Are you gonna at least redesign that?
I have people
Okay. Okay.
working on
Jonathan, will you share how you first met Scott?
No, well, I was thinking about it. So I know that I met him at an Oscars dinner series, and I probably knew I knew of you, but I didn't know you. And then only a couple of months ago, we were sitting next to each other in an Oscars dinner series. But that was more recent. I think probably 5 years ago, you came to one of the dinner series with Oscar, and you were just there as a blogger. I guess our PR people invited you to that.
Yep.
So I think that was my first proper meeting with you. But then I probably reached out to Scott on Twitter and started saying, like, he was probably saying bad things about the Las Vegas club, and it offended me. And
I would never say anything negative about anything.
Our second clip is one of my closest friends here in Las Vegas, a guy whose 50th birthday I just celebrated. By the way, it was my 40th birthday last week, and you didn't mention that at the top of this episode. So I'm 40, everyone.
Happy birthday, Jonathan.
Thank you, Gary. Had lots of various celebrations. But anyway, our second clip is Jason, who, as far as I'm concerned, transformed nightlife. He came to town in, I think it was like 2005, a couple of years before me, and there really wasn't a nightlife, bottle service, DJ, electronic music scene like you have today. And he elevated it, he introduced it, and I mean, we'll hear about that, but for me, he was an instrumental part of my learning the industry, going out at night, finding out how this town worked back in 2007, and have to have him on any entertainment top charts.
was there a moment though where you sort of went into town, you're like, wow, we've done this, it's happened? Like, did you look around and see the lines to get in, which there always was, and the crowds and the people? Like, because it must have gone pretty quick from nothing, like you just described, to being the coolest place basically in the city at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation for it financially was XYZ, and that would have been a real hit for us. Right. And by the 6 months, we were doing 7 times that.
So it took 6 months.
And it just kept building and building. And at that point, I was supposed to go home back to New York. I was only supposed to be there for 3 months. And I called my partners. I'm like, I need help out here. I need more office space. You need to fly out my younger brother, who's a great operator, who's working with us in New York. And you need to fly out this person, that person. We have a real thing here. And I ended up staying. And I think it was probably within 6 months, we really sat back and we were wowed. But, you know, to be fair, the concept was great. The execution was great. And we're super proud of that. But I have to give credit to the city. The city, it was just great timing. Right. The city was just booming. And there was only 2 or 3 other venues doing what we were doing. So the landscape was much less competitive as it is now. Right. And as you said, like on a normal Friday and Saturday night, we were shutting down the doors at midnight, and there was 800 people in the Grand Hall of Venetian waiting to get in. Yeah. And that's how crazy it was back then.
Yeah, how do you create that hype? And why do so many people wait in line? And
I mean, I think we had a really great offering where it was almost full. It was like one-stop shop. You could go there early, have a great cocktail in the lounge, have this amazing meal on a really established menu that Tao had, and then go up to the nightclub. And instead, people were like lounging here, going to dinner there, running here. And to make it all sort of seamless in a synergy was a really unique offering. And I think we just did a really good job marketing it, putting it really relevant events, relevant DJs, keeping the service obviously at a level that was, we thought, unmatched at the time. And I think that all just became a perfect storm.
Service in a nightclub is a big deal.
Especially in Vegas.
Yeah.
I think the standard here is probably highest than anywhere in the world. You go to some of these vacation spots, Mykonos, Ibiza, and they know that the guest is there for a weekend and they don't see them for a year. Right. So whether you get that service points and you get really that specialty gracious hospitality, they don't care. In Vegas, you have to do that or you die because it's so competitive, and this town is built on that gracious hospitality.
All right, guys, buckle your seatbelts for the next couple clips that we have up here. This is going to be Freddie Glossman, who is the pretty much a Vegas institution. So,
yeah. So a couple of things. One, when people say they've listened to our podcast, this is the episode that everyone says, what on earth is going on over here? This is the one where if you're going to only listen to one of our podcasts, this might be the one. he I gotta tell you, is, as you say, he's an institution, and his restaurant Piero is an institution, but this conversation was just so all over the place, and he had never done a podcast, maybe never done an interview. I think it's the only time we've ever gone to their office.
You went to them, right?
Yeah.
You and Lisa went.
We went to his restaurant.
Yeah.
We sat upstairs in some like clandestine back room of Piero's, and he just verbally abused us for like an hour. It was quite unbelievable, but extremely entertaining. And you know, when you hear the way he runs that restaurant and why it's so successful, he's an incredible operator, but not an incredible podcast guest.
Let's get to the clip.
But you are a big part of the experience.
I'm all of the experience.
You know that, right? Well, you can't eat
All of the
experience.
I am the experience.
Okay, I agree with you. But then one day, if you're tired or you can't be here, you're worried that that experience won't continue.
Fuck it, who cares?
You won't be here to worry about it.
What are you going to worry about?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
No, but, you know,
You're going to feed me pasta in the grave?
No. I wonder, because you're someone that I think a lot of independent operators, whether it's restaurants, hotels, whatever it is, should aspire to be as hands-on as you are, to know your customers. You sit with your guests, you treat your guests right, you take care of your guests. If every businessman understood that, they'd all be a lot more successful. But they don't. And you're probably the best at it of anyone I've ever seen at your age. To continue to still do that on a nightly basis is unbelievable. I'm tired now at the end of the day. I don't have the ability to 7 nights a week to do what.
Yeah, but you're doing shit in your head.
Right. Thank you.
I don't do shit in my head.
You just chill in your head, and then you.
I just watch the room. I watch the customers. I greet them. I make sure they have bread on the table. When I opened it up, I said, you got to serve the best bread. You got to start with the valet, the best bread, the best Caesar salad, because that's how they're going to tell if you're any good. The Caesar salad and the bread, and then go on from there. What else you want to know?
When did you decide to do Piero's?
I'm not two Pieros yet.
Okay, so the Rancho burns down, your motel that you're running.
The El Rancho, Vegas, burnt down.
Okay.
I wasn't running. I was running the men's shop there.
Okay, but I read that you had a stint at the Dunes, at the Trop, at the Stardust.
I had dress shops for days. Freddie with an accent over the E.
Oh, Freddie, to try to
Freddie, because I
just
couldn't
sound like
call it.
European cultural.
Well, I couldn't call it Freddie's because I had a car lot on Main Street.
That's right.
Where on Main Street?
1521 South Main.
I think it's still there.
I don't know what's there. This is 40 years, 50 years ago.
So I want to hear about how Piero's came to be, but we're not getting to that piece. Can you tell us how Piero's came to be?
It's here. It's here.
It was Villa d'Est. Joe Pig's running it.
Joe Pignell's seller sold it to me.
Oh, okay. As the Villa d'Est. And you turned it into Piero's?
Right, because I was on Karen.
And you moved it over here. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that. And that was in 1982.
No.
8?
87.
88?
About there. 87, 88.
Right, because in 88 you had the... right. And then you had the movie Casino filmed here. Right?
And you were in the casino.
Yeah, but you had to put it on slow motion.
To see you. If it was done today, you'd be much more prominent, I think.
No. Not with the director.
Scorsese.
He was good.
So was Piero's always on the map, or did Casino help put it on the map, or was Piero's
everything helps?
Everything helps.
Well, I read on the website and attributed a quote to you that there's two men that made this place famous: Jerry Lewis and is it Mr. Tarkanian? Jerry Tarkanian? The two Jerrys. What were their... Could you tell us a little bit about each of them? Because we've never talked about them on this podcast. And Jerry Tarkanian, obviously, I know about from the successful Revels teams.
Right.
And he was your best friend.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about
You've
Jerry?
got some basketballs here. Does that have to do with...
I got all the basketballs. Jerry Tarkanian ate dinner with me for just as long as he was at UNLV and never paid. He was comp forever and ever and ever.
Because he was your friend.
And he helped me because what Jerry was, the people were. So I kind of used him too.
Another man who transformed entertainment in Las Vegas, Ross Mollison, another very dear friend. And Ross founded Absinthe, among other things, Atomic Saloon, Super Frico. And, as of when we were recording this, Absinthe just turned 13 last week. And to this point, I believe it's the most successful show in the history of Las Vegas. And I say that because it redefined a new category. Obviously, you have all the Cirque du Soleils and you have other shows that have been around forever, whether it's Penn and Teller, who I recently saw, a Blue Man Group, who were just here. But Absinthe redefined the variety show act, and to run 13 years, and if I'm not mistaken, it's the only show that runs 7 days a week, 2 shows a night. I think some nights 3 shows a night. So if I'm not mistaken, they're doing like 16 shows a week, which nobody else is doing. And it's, in a time when a lot of shows are closing, there's a lot of talk of shows closing. What Ross did with Absinthe in that tent, it, to me, is a game changer. And if you haven't seen Absinthe, it's the #1 show I tell everyone to go see in Las Vegas.
Are you going to have your mom come back and see the show again?
I think I know she came. We went back. We went back in December and she enjoyed it. I think we're done though. I think we're done with that.
Let's get into that clip.
And we opened April Fool's Day 2011.
So I have no idea why I did this, but around that time, maybe 2012, 2011, my mother was visiting from London, and I didn't know what to do with her, so we decided to book a show, and I had never seen Absinthe. I didn't have a relationship with you. We went to see Absinthe, and I had no idea what it was going to be about. And about 10 minutes into it, I started thinking, oh my God, I brought my mother to something that she's definitely not going to be enjoying. But and interesting enough, some people did walk out, but my mother enjoyed it. Now, is this something that I think I've talked to you or someone else about it, but on a nightly basis, you see a couple of people that will leave?
Yeah, not now because the tickets are so expensive. But
but that was kind of the thing that you were like, that's the sign of a good show.
Well, and things have changed since then. That's 10 years ago now. And, there's no excuse for not knowing what a show's about in 2020. You could do a little Goog and, and it shows you exactly what's going on there. So, back then, yes, there was more people would have a reaction to it. We still get people who it's not necessary for them. And I like to say it's not necessarily for everybody, right?
Of course. That's anything in life.
And as is anything in life. And you know what? When we're operating properly, nearly 1 million people a week come to Vegas. And I don't need to sell that many tickets. I sell out about 9,000 tickets, and that's fine. I don't need all 1 million. I don't need all 1 million of them. I only need 9,000, and there's plenty of people who want to come.
Well, and aren't you the only show in Las Vegas ever to successfully run 7 days a week, 2 shows a day?
Yeah, we do it. We're actually, when we close, we're actually doing 3 shows on Saturday. So yeah, we were doing 15 shows a week, 7 days a week. And, it's an enormous employer. It's an enormous brand for Vegas. It's specific. It's only in Vegas. If you want to see Absinthe, you have to come to Vegas to see it. And, it just shows that if you work hard and you have a new idea, you can build it in Vegas and build a new brand and build a following, which is exactly what Cirque did. And, they were an inspiration to us. And that's what we choose to do here.
So the show is I love the show. I've seen that one. I've seen Absinthe and Opium. I haven't seen Atomic Saloon yet, but I can't wait to go when it opens again. But so it's compiled of these different variety shows sort of thing. Do you come up with these acts, or do you have auditions constantly of what is the most bizarre thing happening right now?
Yeah, I travel the world looking for unusual things. My favorite thing is when I find what I call an unusualist, which is somebody who does something that's not a circus category like hula hoop or juggler. You know, like when you find an unusualist, that's one of the great days.
Like the guy who steps into the tennis racket.
Well, yeah, like Captain Frodo is. I first worked with Captain Frodo like over 20 years ago. We've known each other that long, and to my mind, he is one of the greatest in the world. You know, he really is amazing because you know it's a contortion act, and it's a strength act, but ultimately it's a comedy act. And that's where I fall. That's where I love it so much because it's just such a beautiful thing to watch people watch him perform. And that's where, you know, in our venue, you can be looking at the artists on stage, but a lot of the time you're watching someone like your mother, Jonathan. You know, you're watching her reaction to what's happening on stage and seeing how she responds to Captain Frodo or the Gazillionaire or David Omer or, you know, the Bubble Act or whatever it is. And that's also part of the delight is that we're all in this together.
Pat Christensen is our next guest, our next clip. And we chose Pat because probably the thing that people ask me the most about in terms of my involvement in any event or entertainment portion of this town is the rodeo, and how did a Jewish English guy end up being the face of the rodeo in downtown Las Vegas. And, you know, what Pat talks about here is how the rodeo came to town and why Vegas is a rodeo town today and how NFR ended up here. And obviously they have other events that are significant, from EDC to the Rock and Roll Marathon. But the NFR is, in my opinion, the biggest and best event of the year in Las Vegas.
And that's the hardest ticket to get by far of any event that's in Las Vegas.
Well, I know Conor McGregor's
Annually.
fighting again this year.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, look, you're probably right in terms of, and nothing else does 10 days and that kind of attendance, but it just is so much more than just the rodeo, the conventions, the spin-off events, the trade shows. It's just, it's unbelievable what they have. The concerts.
December.
It takes over the worst month of the year and makes it good, and that's powerful.
I was the assistant director at Thomas & Mack then. I opened Thomas & Mack in 1983.
Yeah.
And in 85, when it moved here, I remember here's how I was involved. I remember the director then, his name was Dennis Fitzrock, was in Colorado Springs with the bid. It went back. I mean, change is a four-letter word in the rodeo world. So for them to make this move from Oklahoma City, where it had been for years, and it was selling out, to Vegas was a really big deal. So the vote came down to a 5-5. And they needed a couple more things. I think they called the LVCVA and got a little bit more prize money. But they called, I remember Dennis getting on the phone to me and saying, listen, if we don't charge them at all for the merchandise, meaning typically a building will get 20, 30% of the merchandise. Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at how much merchandise they sell at the rodeo, that's a lot of money. And he asked me, well, what do you think? Should we give in? I said, that's an easy one. Yes. And then again, okay, so it was that close. So that was probably my only role in anything to do with bringing it here.
That's a huge role. That probably swung the vote.
Well, I think that it's when you look at everything as one of the smaller parts, but 87, once it started to sell out, literally we went through like 10, 15 years where that's it. There were, I think, 7 years into it because it was selling out, and we did a new deal. We got the satellite feed. At the time, it was called a satellite feed because what that allowed us to do is anyone that couldn't get tickets could just watch it in the hotel, but there were no viewing parties. You literally had it in the bars, and so it was part of the experience. About 15 years ago, we started to work with the hotels on creating experiences and really upgrading their viewing parties. And now there's probably 2 or 3 times as many people in town without tickets. Yeah. And I think that's all. There's 3 keys to the success of the NFR. One is that competition is the same. You got 15 contestants going against the top stock, best stock, for $10 million in a just a great show at Thomas & Mack. Then you have the hotels that continually look to build on the experiences they've created. And then on top of that, LVE has a very, very aggressive marketing and digital year-round program. So I think that the combination of those three things will continue to grow the visitors for the NFR.
I know it's fairly political. I'm sure there's debate about it, but is Thomas and Mack a big enough venue for it? If you're saying it sells out every night and has done for 25 years, is there an argument to put it in a bigger venue?
I would say if we didn't do the viewing parties, maybe I'd say maybe yes. But when you have that many visitors in town, that's our goal. Our goal isn't whether they buy a ticket for an event and go to the event. Our goal is to have them. And in fact, think about it. Would you rather have them over at Thomas & Mack, or would you rather have them in your hotel?
Oh, I know the answer to that.
So as long as we continue to make that, and that's what the hotels have done, one of the things we worry about, not a lot, because the value of that ticket, we sell it for a plaza ticket for $107. On the secondary ticket market, they're getting average in the lower level, $400, $450.
Wow.
So the value of the tickets only gone up, while more people are coming to Vegas for what we call the NFR experience.
I love what you said. It's so true. It's like a niche event where the rest of the world and country have no idea what's going on, but there's this core group that absolutely love it, come to Vegas for sometimes 2 weeks. And I would say, and correct me if you disagree, that this is the biggest event of the year, not just in size, but in terms of length. So, for example, we do great when Life is Beautiful's here, but it's 3 days. Or CES, which this year was obviously very challenging, but historically is a great event. These are great events for 4 days, 5 days. You never really get more than 7 days. And all of a sudden, you got this event that for 10 days, our steakhouse is full every night, the hotel's full, the watch parties are full. Depending on your activation, for us, we have a little arena. For others, it's different things, whether it's concerts. There's nothing like this in Las Vegas, and the impact it's had, never mind what Lisa mentioned, which is it took a dead 2 weeks and plugged it in. I mean, to lose it would be a tragedy for the town.
Yeah, we're not going to lose it.
And I think to wrap up our best ofs, hope you guys have enjoyed our best ofs.
Let's bring it back down to Fremont Street.
Yeah, and it's timely because we talked about this a few episodes ago. We sold these properties, but the buildings that I think made nightlife in downtown Las Vegas were East Fremont, and our signing of the Beauty Bar was the first lease in East Fremont, which allowed Downtown Cocktail Room, the Griffin, Commonwealth, everything else that subsequently came to only happen because of Paul DeWitt and his vision to bring the Beauty Bar downtown. So that's the story we're going to tell. There was very few people looking beyond Fremont Street experience.
Right.
And you had this idea that, based on going to the Ice House, that you could open a bar in downtown?
Yes, that's accurate. I liked East Fremont. I liked that little spot. That felt really like old Vegas, that one block between.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I went over there in 2005. I thought I was going to get killed. What did you see that made you feel like?
It was the streetscape. It was the buildings. It was the single-story buildings, the storefronts. That felt to me like this is 1950s Vegas.
Yeah, okay.
Was the Griffin there?
No.
Nothing was there.
Not okay. Wow.
There was a cell phone store and
the chili Philly cheesesteak.
There was I went to a cell phone store.
I was the first one, basically, that opened hospitality there. I think there was one other guy. There was a place down the street, and it lasted like a year. It was like a video bar or something weird like that. Greg, remember that guy?
Nah,
was it a little hotel like on the further, where Big Daddy's Carlos's places?
Okay.
right
the old Post-it, the old Fingerprint building.
I think it might have been, yeah. But he didn't last. It was a really kind of a weird place.
So I got to say, I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, because you preceded me in downtown. I don't even, you were our tenant when I got out here. You were the only tenant we had, maybe in our entire portfolio.
Tenant number one. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that was you. But who did you work with to get that lease done? Do you remember?
What was his name?
Was it already Tamara's owned at that time? I know that we bought the lease.
It was Barrick.
Okay, so when we bought the portfolio.
I can't remember the guy's name.
Steve Crystal?
Steve Crystal. That's the guy. Yeah.
So when we bought the buildings, when we bought the portfolio, they must have been managing it. It was before me. This is 2004.
Yeah.
And so you did the lease with them.
I did it with Crystal. Then another guy came in, Michael something.
Michael Trainer.
So yeah, Crystal took us around and showed us some properties down here on Main Street, and then took us over to Fremont. And I was like, I love this block. This is where we got to be if we're going to do this.
What was the beauty bar at that time?
It was a check cashing place, and then they moved him next door. I believe.
Yeah, the check cashing was when I came here. I had to kick them out.
Right, and that's when Don't Tell Mama came in.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So you turned the check cashing. Now, did Beauty Bar exist, or was it a new brand?
No, Beauty Bar started in New York in 1995, and I opened in an old beauty salon. Basically, I had an idea to open a bar that looked like a beauty salon, so I bought out furniture from an old beauty salon, and I was looking for a space in Manhattan, and then I stumbled across this spot that was a beauty salon from 1950, still operating. And I went in and spoke to the guy and said, I'm interested in this place. You want to sell your lease? And he thought I was a hairdresser, and he said, yeah, I've been thinking about retiring. So I bought the place and turned it into, basically put a bar in it and left it all original. So people sat under the hair dryers. We did manicures and martinis with his aunt, who was the original owner, and the rest is history. Then it was
awesome.
Usually we do this at the beginning of our episode, but if you're hanging out all the way to the end, we're going to be doing our last giveaway for our best of. So make sure you follow us on all the social media channels on the corner of Main Street, and all of our social media handles.
Whatever you're supposed to do with podcasts.
Yeah. I'm not used to doing all the subscriptions and everything else.
It's time you get better at it.
I know.
We're going to be giving away an amazing poker set, probably some other goodies that go with it. So repost. We're going to find the rules on social media. And please share this episode, and you could win a very cool prize.
Right. And if you like these clips, go back and subscribe. Listen to a bunch of the episodes. There's a lot of good content that's in there, especially the older ones when Jonathan was a little bit more rusty at this. Now he's very comfortable doing these podcasts and having these conversations. So me, on the other hand, I'm still working on it.
Thank you for listening.
Are you a fan of On the Corner of Main Street? You're listening, so we'll assume that's a yes. So share the love. Rate, review, and tell a friend to subscribe. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram @PlazaPod, on Facebook, Plaza Podcast, and feel free to write to the man himself @Jonathan Jossel. We'll see you next time, right here on the corner of Main Street.